Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Shri Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Shri Prabhupada. Shri Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 1, Text 8. So we need a translation for this. Somebody can do the translation for Mace and Theo. Rohinyas Tanaya Prokto Rama Sankashanastvaya Devakya Gabasambhanda Kuto Dehantaram Vina Rohinyas Tanaya Prokto Rama Sankashanastvaya Devakya Gabasambhanda Kuto Dehantaram Vina Rohinyas Tanaya Prokto Rama Sankashanastvaya Devakya Gabasambhanda Kuto Dehantaram Vina. Bolo. Rohinyas Tanaya Prokto Rama Sankashanastvaya Devakya Gabasambhanda Kuto Dehantaram Vina Kuto Dehantaram Vina. Rohinyastaya Prapto Mama Sankarshanastaya Devakya Gavasambhanda Kuto Dehantaram Vina. Rohinyastaya Prapto Rama Sankarshanastaya Devakya Gavasambhanda. Rohinya of Rohini Devi, the mother of Baladev, Tanaya, the son, Rakta, is well known, Rama, Balaram, Sankarsana, Balaram is none other than Sankarshan, the first deity in the quadruple group, Sankarshan, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, and Vasudev. Tvaya, by you it is so said, Devakya of Devaki, the mother of Krishna. Garbha Sambandha, connected with the womb. Kuta, how? Dehantaram, transferring bodies. Vina, without. So Maharaj Parikshit is speaking to Sukadeva Goswami. He's asking a question. He says, "My dear Sukadeva Goswami, you have already explained that Sankarshan, who belongs to the named Balaram. If Balaram was not transferred from one body to another, how is it possible that he was first in the womb of Devaki and then in the womb of Rohini? Kindly explain this to me." Purport. Here is a question particularly directed at understanding Balaram, who is Sankarshan himself. Balaram is well known as the son of Rohini, yet it is also known that he was the son of Devaki. Parikshit Maharaj wanted to understand the mystery of Balaram's being the son of both Devaki and Rohini. So it's not quite so scary this week. Last week there were 4 Prabhupada disciples. I was just like trembling. I just prayed like anything, Krishna, and somehow something came out of my mouth. So this is a technical question, wanting to know how is it that Balaram is the son of two mothers. So he's a Devaki Nandan, and he's also Revati Nandan, Revati Sutta, Rohini Sutta, sorry. Rohini Nandan. Who was Balaram's first mother? Of the two? Of Devaki and Rohini. He was first the son of Devaki. Yeah. And then he was transferred to the womb of Rohini. So Rohini was also a wife of Vasudeva. So Vasudeva had 16 wives. And Krishna asked Yoga Maya, is Krishna's internal spiritual energy, to transfer the fetus, the embryo, from the womb of Devaki to the womb of Rohini. So it was Devaki's 7th pregnancy. And if we know Krishna, but we know that previous 6 children had all been killed by Kamsa. So Balaram was protected. He was moved to Rohini's womb, and Rohini was staying in Vrindavan. And so it appeared that Devaki appeared, at least to Kamsa, that Devaki had had a miscarriage. It appeared that the child was no longer, but they didn't know that it had been transferred. Now it's not medically possible to do such a thing, to do such a delicate operation. And in the Krishna, kill the embryo and take it out, but they can't keep it alive and put it in another womb. And it says in the Krishna book that it was a little difficult even for Yoga Maya to perform such an operation. But it's done. Krishna's desire, things get done. So it's very unusual to have 2 mothers, 2 actual biological mothers. Sometimes we have a mother and then we have a stepmother, but he actually had 2 biological mothers because he was conceived in one womb and then born from another womb. So I don't have anything else to say on that. If anybody wants to make a comment, otherwise I'm going to read a little bit about these personalities, these 3 personalities on the Vaishnava calendar today. Anybody want to say anything about this birth of Balaram? I go on to Ganga Mata Goswamini. Yeah. It's her appearance day today. Can you hear? Can you hear okay? You can hear okay?
I hear that. What kind of respond you get used to it?
Yes, you have to get used to mine. Can't change it. Maybe I speak in a French accent. Okay. So there are not very many female acharyas in our line, acharyinis, but apparently Gangamata Goswamini is a bona fide personality. So I downloaded something, not knowing very much at all about her. I downloaded something from the internet, from Sri Google. And I'll just read, it's a short biography. And then after that we can speak something about Baladev. And there's also the appearance day of the Ganga, the Ganges, Le Gange today. princess. Her father was a king, a very opulent situation. And right from her childhood, she was very interested in worshipping. And she was also a very good student. And as she became a little older, and her parents wanted to get her married. She was very, very beautiful. But she had no interest at all in having a husband. And her parents were so disappointed. Anyway, they left their bodies. They were not able to get her married. I don't know. Seems like that was a bit distressing to them. So then she had to take care of the kingdom because she was the princess. But she was also not interested in doing that. So she appointed some people to take care of the kingdom, took responsibility. And then she went off on pilgrimage. She went to search out a guru. And on her travels she came to Jagannath Puri. And she had darshan of Lord Jagannath there. And then she went to Vrindavan. And then in Vrindavan, she met her guru. It was called Haridas Pandit Goswami. He was a sannyasi. He was a worshipper of Gaurnitai. She was a devotee of Gaurnitai. And she was very happy to find a bona fide guru and take shelter. So the line is like this. It said, Ananta Acharya was a disciple of Gadadhar Pandit Goswami. And his disciple was Pandit Haridas. And then Haridas Pandit was the spiritual master. Gangamata. At that time she was known as Sachi. She got the name Gangamata later for one of the pastimes, which we will read. So Haridas Pandit, he saw that she was a daughter of a king, she was a princess, and he was very doubtful that she could actually perform, austerities and be renounced. So he wanted to test her. And he asked her to go door to door, begging door to door. He said, if you can give up all your pride and fear and beg door to door, then you'll be qualified to receive my mercy. Hearing this, Sachi, that was her name, became very happy, and covering her body with one soiled cloth, she went door to door to beg from the residents of Raja, to beg something to eat. Her body became very thin and pale, but the Brajbasis could understand that she was not an ordinary woman because of her bodily effulgence. So even though she wasn't dressed very beautifully or her body wasn't very nicely kept, she's still very effulgent. The Vaishnavas were astonished by her great austerities. Though she became quite thin, she took no notice of that and continued to regularly bathe in the Yamuna, clean the temple of the Lord, go on parikram, attend arti ceremonies, and hear discussions about Krishna. So Haridas became pleased. Though you are the daughter of a king, the exertion in which you have worshipped Sri Krishna and the degree of renunciation you have shown have very much pleased me. Now be pleased to accept the divine mantra. Thereafter, on the 13th day of the bright fortnight of the month of Chaitra, she was initiated in the Radha Krishna mantra. Having received the 18-syllable mantra, she became completely imbued with love of God. Although very destitute means without any money, without any material situation, she began to serve Guru and Govinda with intense devotion. Every day she would listen to her gurus explain the Shastra. Within a short time, she became quite conversant in the literature of the Goswamis. So she learned the Shastra, and in those days you didn't have books, you had to hear from somebody. So she was hearing and remembering. Okay. Around this time, another lady, disciple of the same guru, came. And she was called Lakshmi Priya. And she used to chant 3 lakhs of holy names every day. What's 3 lakhs? That's like, like 3 times 64. 300,000. So that's 3 times 64, is it? That is 100,000.
100,000.
Okay.
That's how.
But how does it work out in number of rounds?
Oh.
58 rounds. She was chanting 58 rounds a day this day.
64.
64.
They're not saying the mantra, they're saying the name.
Yeah. So so it's 64 rounds. Anyway, she was chanting a lot. And the 2 of them were together. They were in Radhakund together, and they were worshipping together. And they were walking around Govardhan Hill. Anyway, at some point, Haridas Pandit said to, we call her Ganga Mata, he told her to go to Jagannath Puri and preach. So she left Lakshmi Priya in Govardhan, and she went to Jagannath Puri. He said, go to Puri and preach the message of Lord Gaurasunda to the pious people there. At this time, almost all the associates of Mahaprabhu had given up their earthly pastimes. So they hadn't necessarily, not everyone had necessarily heard of Lord Gauranga. In accordance with the order of her guru, Sachi came there and took up residence in the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. No one had lived there for so many days, and the place was very run down. So it's not that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was there, but she was in the same house that he'd lived in. The house was run down. Only the Damodar Shila that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya used to worship was remaining there. So Sachi resumed Bhangamata resumed the regular worship of the Lord, and she recited the Srimad Bhagavatam daily. Many people were very impressed to hear her conclusive explanations of the Shastra, and thus she used to congregate there. Her fame as an accomplished lecturer on the Shastra began to spread. One day, King Mukunda Dev came to hear her class. He was very pleased to hear such authoritative conclusions coming from the mouth of this saintly lady. So in his mind, he wished to present her something. That very night, now there's quite a few dreams of Lord Jagannath, because they're in Jagannath Puri. Jagannath is coming to people in their dreams. So this is one dream the king had. And Jagannath says to the king, you should offer the place known as Sweta Ganga to Ganga Mata. So he has some land. So early the next morning, the king came to see her, and Sachi very meekly offered him a seat and inquired as to the purpose of his visit. The king then related to her the order of Lord Jagannath and requested her to accept the piece of land adjacent to Svetaganga. However, she was not interested in acquiring property. She declined the offer. But the king insisted that she accept this royal grant of land, and finally she agreed. After considering it, it was all the order of Lord Jagannath. Yeah, if Lord Jagannath tells something should happen, you have to go along with it, isn't it? You can't just... Anyway, So the king was very pleased to do this service for her, and he gave her this piece of land. So she was there in Jagannath Puri, and there was a very auspicious day for bathing in the Ganga came, and she was thinking she would like to leave Puri and make a pilgrimage to the Ganga, so that she could take bath in the Ganga. But after thinking about it, she thought, no, I shouldn't go, because my guru's order was to remain here in Kshetra, which is Jagannath Puri. But then she had a dream of Lord Jagannath. And in the dream, Jagannath spoke to her, said, do not worry, on the day of Mahavaruni, which is the day for bathing in the Ganga, he said, you should bathe in the Sweta Ganga, which is must be a river or a lake there in Jagannath Puri. He says, bathe in that Sweta Ganga, and then Ganga Devi herself will personally come to join you there. After this dream, she was jubilant, and when the day arrived, in the middle of the night, Sachi went to the Sweta Ganga alone, and she entered the water. Suddenly, a very strong current gripped her and carried her inside the Jagannath Mandir. So she was in one place bathing in the middle of the night, and all this water came, and it washed her up into the Jagannath temple, actually inside the temple. And the temple was flooded. And it says, much to her amazement, by the sacred waters of the Ganges, that was what it was, that she was bathing in the Ganges. The Ganges had come to see her. The Ganges water washed her into the temple. She saw thousands and thousands of the residents of Jagannath Puri taking their bath. So they were also inside the temple in the Ganges, all taking bath. A great uproar resounded in all directions, and recitations of prayers and hymns, that means mantras. In the midst of these festivities, she very religiously performed the Varuni bath in the water of the Ganga. But hearing what seemed like a large crowd of people inside the temple, the guards, what's going on in there? You know, because normally it'd be very, very quiet at night, and the guards would just be like sleeping a bit, you know, and just making sure there were no thieves or strange things going on. But they heard all this noise, like all these people inside. So they went quickly and informed the king, and the king said, open the temple, see what's going on. So when they opened it, they found her inside. They found Ganga Mata inside the temple.
This is in the main Jagannath temple.
And he says, Jagannath Mandir. They found her inside the temple, and she's there alone. So the water's gone away and all the people have gone away. She's just standing there alone. The priests of the temple decided that she must have smuggled herself into the building in order to steal the ornaments of Lord Jagannath. So they thought she was a culprit. But then some other people thought, well, no, that's not possible for her to have done that. There must be some reason. This is a mystery, but there must be something, there must be some reason behind this. But they decided what they would do. They would keep her in the prison, and they would put her on trial and find out what actually was going on. So she was detached. She went along with it. She chanted Hare Krishna and just remembered the Lord. Anyway, at the same time, the king had a dream. And in the dream, Lord Jagannath told him, you should immediately release this lady. I personally caused the Ganga to flow from my own foot, and it was this that brought her into the temple. She could take bath on this holy day because I made this arrangement. If you are concerned for the welfare of your subjects and your own good fortune, and along with the temple priest, you better go and beg forgiveness at her lotus feet and request to become her disciple. So Krishna was really right involved there. So the king, he woke up in a very worried state after the dream. He quickly had a bath and called for the priests, and they went to the place where she was being kept in, it says confinement, but it must be some kind of, anyway, she was locked up somewhere. So they went, the king opened the door and fell down at her lotus feet to offer his obeisances. He very humbly begged her forgiveness and submitted Lord Jagannath's instruction that he become her disciple. Please accept me. I'm not only sorry, but please accept me as your disciple. Seeing the wonderful behavior of the king, she placed her hand on his head that he might become benedicted. On the next auspicious day, she initiated the king with a Radha Krishna mantra. Many of the priests also accepted the shelter of her lotus feet. And from that day on, she became known as Sri Ganga Mata Goswamini. The king wanted to donate some land to Ganga Mata as Guru Dakshi, but she declined, saying that she only wanted the king should attain loving devotion to Lord Krishna's lotus feet. I am not qualified to accept anything more than this, she told him. But the king repeatedly entreated her, repeatedly requested her to accept something. Finally, for the purpose of serving the Vaishnavas, she agreed. So then every day, 2 pots of Mahaprasad were sent. 1 pot of vegetables. It says 2 pots of Mahaprasad, 1 pot of vegetables, and 1 remnant of Lord Jagannath's cloth, and 160 conch shells were sent to her ashram every day. And it says that service is still observed. The articles are first offered to her samadhi and then used in the ashram. Okay, there's another pastime. I won't read that out because it's time is going on. Now I'm going to read about Baladev Vidyabhushan. Does anybody know who he is? Heard of him? Baladev Vidyabhushan? The Acharya?
Prabhupada writes about the dedication part in the front. Prabhupada writes, he's one of our acharyas.
Mm-hmm.
Prabhupada writes a big thank you. He's the one who wrote the Bhashya.
Yes, that's the main. Yeah. So he was a disciple of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He's the one in line after Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So he wrote lots and lots and lots and lots of books. But a lot of them are not available, and there's one devotee in India, he's not initiated, it's called Damien Martins, his name is. And he's going all over India collecting old manuscripts written by Baladev Vidyabhushan. And he's collected quite a lot. Things that that haven't been available until now. He's having them translated. And he's dedicated his life simply to that endeavor.
In which year is this for us? It's trying to collect
Now, it's now, yeah. He's actually from Brazil.
He's not devotee,
Yeah, he's a devotee. Yeah, he's a devotee. But he's not initiated. But he travels all over India and getting all these old manuscripts because he learned, obviously he learned English, he learned Hindi, he learned Sanskrit. He went to the Benares University and studied there Sanskrit and Hindi, and one of these super learned pundits, and he's able to translate, and he's gathering all these documents, he's preserving the legacy of Baladev Vidyabhushan. Because it's not just Baladev Vidyabhushan, but there are so many old manuscripts, there's so much Vaishnava literature that we don't know about, that we haven't read, that is available if you read Sanskrit. Otherwise, people just light the fire. They find some old manuscript and they light the fire with it. It's just, things are getting lost. So he was a very humble soul, and nobody really knows anything about him because he never told anybody and he never wrote anything about his own life. But they think he was born in the 18th century, and he was probably born in Orissa. So he very quickly finished his studies. He studied grammar, poetry, rhetoric, and logic, and then went on pilgrimage, and he went to South India. And he learned from the Tattvavadis of South India all about Madhvacharya. And he became a preacher of Madhvacharya's teachings. He became a Madhvite. Anyway, he traveled, he came to Orissa. And in Orissa, he met a grand disciple of Sri Rasikananda. Rasikananda was, and so he was a Vaishnava, a Gaudiya Vaishnava. So this grand disciple of Rasikananda was called Radha Damodar Dev, and he explained all Gaudiya philosophy to him. So when Baladev heard all this Gaudiya philosophy, he became a follower of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Became initiated. And then he began to study the Sandarbhas, the Sandarbhas of Jiva Goswami. He's so intelligent, he was able to understand and study all of that. He became very expert in the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. And he moved to Vrindavan, because that was in Orissa, and then he went to Vrindavan, and he was studying under Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was extremely pleased to see the humble and gentle nature and the renunciation and the profound mastery of the Vedas that characterized Baladev. He carefully instructed him in the Achintya Veda Veda Tattva. Baladev fully accepted the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy and began to preach it with great vigor. Now this is the interesting pastime begins. The members of the Sri Sampradaya began to raise some arguments in the court of the king in Jaipur. Jaipur is not very far away from Vrindavan, a few hours from Vrindavan. There's a holy city called Jaipur, and there's a deity called Govinda. It was being worshipped, and the king was involved. The king was a devotee. Anyway, these Ramanandis from the Sri Sampradaya, they were objecting to the way that they were worshipping Govinda. They were saying there should not be Radharani. Why are you worshipping this Radharani? It's not in the Shastra that we should worship Radharani. And all these Bengalis, you have all these Bengali pujaris, they're not bona fide. You shouldn't have all these Bengalis. You should have proper Sri Sampradaya pujaris. So the king was obliged by these people because they were very powerful in Jaipur. So he had to remove Radharani from the altar, and he had to stop the Bengalis worshipping the deities. And the reason they gave, they said that the Gaudiyas, these worshippers of Radha Krishna, and these Bengali pujaris, they're not bona fide because the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they have no commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. So you're not bona fide. To be a bona fide Sampradaya, you have to have a commentary of the Vedanta Sutra. So the king heard this, and what he did, he was a devotee himself, so he sent a message to Vishwanath Chakravarti. Please help. There's a dreadful situation. They won't let us worship Radha Krishna. They won't let us engage these Bengali pujaris. So Vishwanath Chakravarti, he was too old. He was much too old to travel. Because in those days you travel by ox cart or walk. So he thought, I will send my student Baladev. So Baladev went and he argued with the Ramanujis. And he debated. And he proved, philosophically, he established the correct Siddhanta, that it is bona fide to worship Radha Krishna. And the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya is a bona fide Sampradaya. But they wouldn't accept, even though he defeated them, they wouldn't accept. He said, no, because you haven't got a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, we do not accept that you are a bona fide Sampradaya. You have to have a commentary. So Baladev was very, very aggrieved to hear this. He went to Govindaji, he went to the deity, and he offered his obeisances. And then he had a dream that night. After praying to the Lord, he had a dream. And the Lord said to him in the dream, I will dictate to you a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. And you just write down what I tell you, and no one will be able to refuse, to accept. So this is the solution to the problem, is Krishna can do something miraculous. Because it would take months and months to write a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, very philosophically dense. You'd have to go through all the points, you'd have to go through all the references. But it was just going to be dictated. Having seen such a wonderful dream, Baladev was totally enlivened and felt renewed strength within his own heart. He began to write, and within a few days, just a few days, he completed the commentary, which was titled Sri Govinda Bhasya. And then there's a prayer in Sanskrit, which he wrote, Baladev wrote for Govinda. And he wrote this prayer, but I read it in English. The prayer is, may he who so mercifully and munificently was kind towards me and bestowed his favor by ordering me in a dream to write down his own commentary, which he would compose and which attained such renown among the learned circles, bestowed upon me the title Vidya Bhushan. May that dear friend of Srimati Radharani, who holds him dearer than her own life, be glorified. May Shri Govinda be glorified. So that's why he got the title Vidya Bhushan. Vidya means knowledge, and Bhushan means decorated with or ornamented. So he means he was ornamented with knowledge, Vidya Bhushan. So we call him Baladev Vidya Bhushan. So now he had the commentary. So he came to the assembly of the Ramanandi scholars. After reading the commentary, they were simply speechless. The victory of the Gaudiya Sampradaya was announced far and wide, and the king, as well as the other devotees, began to float in the bliss, the ocean of bliss. So that assembly took place in 1628. It was a great triumph. So all the scholars, the Ramanandi scholars, after accepting their defeat, I mean, at least they are honourable enough to accept defeat. Nowadays, if you defeat somebody philosophically, they just say, oh, well, it's your opinion. You know, they don't actually really accept defeat because if false egos are too big. The traditional method is if somebody defeats you, you become their disciple. So, all these Ramanandi scholars, they express their desire to accept initiation from Baladev Vidyabhushan. It's like in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we read about how Prakashananda Saraswati, he was defeated by Lord Chaitanya. He became his disciple. He was a big sannyasi, but he became the disciple of Lord Chaitanya. And all his followers, his thousands of followers, also became disciples of Lord Chaitanya, followers of Lord Chaitanya. So that's what happened. So they asked for initiation, but Baladev Vijayabhushan said no. He said, among the four sampradayas, the Sri Sampradaya was the most highly respected in those days, was the most highly respected and the foremost adherent, which means the most loyal to Dasya Bhakti, to devotion in servitorship. They were the most best example of Dasya Bhakti, that's the best way to put it. They were the best Dasya Bhaktas. If there was any cause of loss or disrespect to that sampradaya, it would be considered an offense. So he didn't want to initiate them. He didn't want to take them out of the Sri Sampradaya. He told them, you stay in the Sri Sampradaya and you do your Dasya Bhakti. And then he returned to Vrindavan. And he brought, after getting their certificate that he defeated all these Ramanandis, he went back with this certificate of victory and he gave it to his spiritual master, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Told him all what had happened, because it was extreme in those days. He didn't know what had happened. He had to wait for him to come back and tell him. So all the devotees in Vrindavan were in great ecstasy to hear that the Gaudiya Vaishnavas had vanquished the Ramanandis philosophically. So then he began to write a commentary on Jiva Goswami's Satsangama. So then in this, it gives, he installs some deities, yeah. He did so many things in Vrindavan. And he became the next Acharya after Vishwanath Chakravarti. I just mentioned that, but he became the next Acharya, which is not a small thing. We're waiting for the next Acharya after Srila Prabhupada. We may wait quite a long time. Anyway, there's a list of books.
I wanted to ask, he was not initiated by Vishwanath Chakravarti.
Doesn't seem like it.
Thakur.
Yeah, it seems like he studied under him. It says he studied under him.
Because he was originally initiated in Madhva Sampradaya.
Yeah, he became a...
They didn't want...
Well, it's the same, isn't it? It's the Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So it would...
He fully accepted our lineage.
Completely, yeah. Completely. Because he would understand, he wouldn't see there's a contradiction, you know. Anyway, it's a long list of books that he wrote, but it's not an exhaustive list. And he said, Baladev Vijayabhushan had two well-known disciples. He himself became later known as Sri Govinda Das. I never heard him called that, but maybe that's why it's called the Govinda Basya. But I think it was Govinda Basya because Govinda deity in Jaipur. Anyway, he had two disciples, Vidyadas, Sri Vidyadas and Sri Nandan Mishra. I've never heard of either of them, but that doesn't mean they're not famous. I haven't heard of them. Disciples of Baladev, yeah. Nandan Mishra and Sri Vidyadas. Well, Jiva Goswami was before because he was studying his books. Anyway, that's all that I found about Baladev Vijayabhushan. And if anybody wants to read about the appearance of the Ganga, there's one chapter in the Bhagavatam in Canto 5, chapter 17. There's a whole long story how the Ganga came to earth. She came on the head of Lord Shiva because She said that if she came on the earth, the force of her waters would be so intense, it wouldn't be possible. So she needed somebody to be able to break the force of the flow. And that would be Lord Shiva. So she came on Lord Shiva's head. And then from Lord Shiva's head she appeared in Gangotri. And flowed throughout the several different areas of India to the Bay of Bengal. But there's a lot of stories about the Ganga and people on the banks of the Ganga, and a famous personality, Ganga, in the Mahabharata. She's a famous personality.
She's actually coming from the ocean.
Originally from the whole, she's from the causal ocean.
Causal ocean.
Yeah. When Lord Vamanadev, but that's to start to tell the whole story. Lord Vamanadev took his third step, made a hole. Was it the second step? That was it, the second step, because he couldn't take a third step. He took his second step, he stretched his foot right up the hole to the end of the universe, and his toe went through the covering of the universe, and the causal ocean started to leak through, come through the hole. And that's the Ganges, so it's water from the spiritual world, from the causal ocean. It's the Ganges, it's sacred water, because it touched the lotus toe of Lord Vishnu, so it's Vamanadev is sacred water. And in the heavenly planets, the Ganga is known as Mandakini. In this planet, she's known as Ganga. In the lower planet, she's known as, is it Bhagirati or Bhagavati? Bhagirati, yeah, because King Bhagirat is one who brought her to this planet. She's also known as the Jahnavi, because she came from the thigh of Lord Janu Dev at some point. Janu, yeah. So many stories. There's one book that an ISKCON devotee wrote all about the Ganga. The whole book is just about the Ganga. How people travel along the Ganga, and they become devotees of the river, and they depend on the river for their whole sustenance, and they have so many adventures. Anyway, it's 9 o'clock. So it's a scientific mystery. Is if you keep Ganga Jal, if you keep Ganges water in a bottle or a jar, it never, ever, ever goes green or murky. If you keep ordinary water in a bottle or a jar, after some time it goes green and moldy. Yeah. In these bottles we buy from the supermarket, they put a little antibiotic, so it doesn't go green. Otherwise it would all be green in the supermarket. Everybody thinks they're buying clean water, but it's got antibiotics in it. But the Ganges water always stays pure and clear. This is scientific mystery, but we know it's because it's spiritually pure water. The Ganges is never contaminated. It says in the Upadeshamrita, even if the stool and dead bodies, Prabhupada's purport, even if there's stool and dead bodies in the Ganges, it's still pure because the water itself is pure. Has a purifying effect. And we can bathe in the Ganges, and it purifies us, just bathing in the Ganges. I didn't really have so much faith. I thought, oh yes, it's a holy river, that's what the Indians say, holy river, yeah. And I went and bathed, the very first time I bathed was in Mayapur. I went in the river, and you dip right in, you'd have to dip right and cover yourself in the water. And I came out, I felt completely purified. I felt completely different. I was like, wow, it works, look at that. I felt like, it's like somebody, just spring cleaned my whole body. It's like, wow, consciousness became clear, everything was like, I was going every day, taking a bath every day.
What is the difference between Ganga and Yamuna? Because it looks like enough.
Yeah. As you know, you say, I don't know. But Yamuna is 1,000 times more sacred, because Krishna actually went in her water, not just touched his toe, but actually went in the water. But in another sense, the Ganga and Yamuna are considered different. But Yamuna flows through Vrindavan. I think that's the difference. She actually arose through Vrindavan.
Maybe can they come up with another faith? You don't have faith, you just...
I drank some Yamuna water. I did get sick. Yeah. I thought I'm going to drink it because it's spiritual. Yeah, but I didn't get sick. Yeah. Well, apparently there's not really any Ganga, Yamuna water there. I've heard that they just divert all the water. They take it for some other reason, maybe for some factories or some irrigation somewhere else. And the water that actually flows now in the channel, in the Yamuna channel, is just sewage. It's just sewage. It's not actually Yamuna water, because it's horrible, isn't it? Like demons that do such things. They have so much places. So they have to do their demonic activities. Demonic activities.
79, it was really clear.
At night.
I remember that, yeah, it was so clear.
What?
In 1979.
When you first went there, yeah, it was clear water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The best, it was so clear.
Yeah.
It was not all this stuff.
Yeah. As the demons, you know. They're not satisfied to have their own demoniac places. You know, they want to go in the holy places also and spoil it. So nasty. And it says that in the Kali Yuga that Vrindavan becomes more and more and more covered, isn't it? And Mayapur becomes more and more manifest. Those two things happen, yeah. I mean, Vrindavan now, I mean, what I've heard, it's all like shopping malls and, you know. Yeah, all the the ashrams, you know, these hotels, you know, all these comfortable places for people to stay. People from Delhi go for the weekend, and they're making all these ashrams. And every time they build, every time they build a building, they have to drill down to get water, so they're drilling lower, further and further down into the water table. So what means is they're taking all the water for these hotels, and then the water table, the whole of Vrindavan has gone down. So there's no water in the wells, and all the villages all around, there's no water in the wells. So the people can't water their cows. There's no water for the cows. So people turn all the cows loose. Nobody can keep their cows. So, you know, if you're staying in these places, you're contributing to the people no longer protecting cows, even in Vrindavan, you know. There's no grass. They can't. What will they do? Some devotees are trying to, are they?
There's a lady in Bhagavati, she's amazing. A German lady. She came in the 70s or so, and she stayed in Bhagavati, starting getting little place for the cows. And now she has a really, again, it was politics. She was attacked and everything. And she got a reward from the president. She got a reward. And she has red heart. She's a devotee. His name is Shri. And she's always no scandal in her spiritual life. Very paka, you know. Just the cows or shanking the cows. You know, she has big place.
That's for cows.
Yeah, she takes them to the street.
Yeah, because the people can't keep their cows, they just turn them loose.
I went there, it's like there's so many cows you can't.
So she must have water for them.
And she knows all of them, and she has a few helpers, but she's...
Sounds like this devotee, was it Kurma? What was it devotee in? There was a devotee in Vrindavan who he left his body, but he was doing that. What was he called? Was it Kurma? Yeah. Hare Krishna, Srimad Bhagavati ki jai. Why didn't we have a? What happened? Pas de traduction. Pourquoi? Il faut demander.
Well, it's not the first time. It's been like this. Every Bhagavatam class, it's like when I'm filming, that there's no a translator. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. These things are reorganized.
Well,
Well, yeah.